All right, welcome back, guys. This is Logan with West Desert Shooter, back at it again. New bullet choice for the 6.5 Creedmoor, along with a first time for myself trying this powder, and we're going back to one that I've tried before. So in today's video, Hornady 130 grain ELD match bullets on Winchester 6.5 StaBALL propellant, as well as Alliant Reloader 16. So we're gonna see how things go. Gonna shake things up just a little bit compared to what I've kind of been doing in the last few videos. My 6.5 Creedmoor is a Uintah Precision rifle, UPR-10. It's a bolt action upper for an AR-10. It has a proof research carbon fiber wrapped cut rifle barrel. It seems like in the last few times I've taken it out and tested it that it doesn't love to get real hot. Now, if you see here how I've got everything organized on the reloading tray, I'm going to be doing some 3-shot group load development here. Now, while I'm only shooting 3 shots, I'm going to cover a broader powder charge range, and we're going to do a smaller split between powder charges. Typically on the Creedmoor, I would do something like half-grain increments just to kind of see what the powder will do and how it performs. In this video, we're going to be doing 3/10 increments. And I kind of want to come up with a real load on this one. For some of the other videos, I'm literally just reloading and shooting to learn and have fun and see how things go. This one, with a 130 grain ELD match, with these components, I should be able to get good velocities, and it should be a fun, out to 800, 1,000 yard shooter, no problem. So we're going to try that. Now, I really want to start trying seating depth and, finding where the lands are and all that fun stuff. I think with this one, I'm going to keep them at mag length. And for the suggested overall length by Hornady, I did find this interesting. Hornady clusters their bullets together of what they recommend for reload data, and they also give you the overall length that they use. So with some of their less low drag bullets, some of their 129 SST, the 129 Interbond, the suggested overall length is actually quite a bit shorter than what the 130 ELD is. Now, my theory behind that is because it's a longer, sleeker bullet. So they still want to get you closer to the lands if possible with their suggested overall length. So we're gonna load to Hornady's spec. These really shouldn't be too jump sensitive. I've never really had an issue with the Hornady ELD lines being real jump sensitive. So we're gonna find out though. We're gonna load it to start to their overall length that they recommend, 2.8. Now in my AR-10, I am magazine limited. I think it's like 2.810, something like that within the magazine. So we're gonna load that so that I can use it as the rifle was intended to be used. For Reloader 16, let's talk about our charges here. All these charges are going to be in the Alpha Munitions 6.5 Creedmoor brass. This is all once fired. I've only shot through these 100 pieces one time, and I just got them all freshly resized. The primers we're going to be using in the 6.5 brass today are Federal large rifle match primers. So got a few of those, and that's what we're going to use. Charge weight, Reloader 16. 3/10 increments, we're going 41.5, 41.8, 42.1, 42.4, and 42.7. 6.5 StaBALL. This is an interesting one because it's one of the few times the Hornady manual has exceeded Hodgdon's sight. Now, Hodgdon, in my opinion, typically runs things pretty high up there, and you can find a real hot load on Hodgdon's website. I would not recommend exceeding Hodgdon's recommended load. However, Hornady, in my experience, there's been a few times where I could exceed it and not really get myself into trouble. Hornady has a higher powder charge in their manual versus Hodgdon with 6.5 StaBALL. I'm going on the side of, it's my first time with the powder. We're gonna back things off a little bit. We're just gonna try it out and see if we can find something that works in this range. So we're starting with 41.8, 42.1, 42.4, 42.7, up to 43 grains. Now, StaBALL, as it implies, is a spherical powder, so it's a ball powder, and then Reloader 16 is an extruded powder. So should be interesting there, a good comparison. I've shot StaBALL match, and it really impressed me with its overall velocities and consistency, so I picked up some 6.5 to try as well, and what better to start with than 6.5 Creedmoor. Reloader 16 is recommended through all the Creedmoor weight ranges, so should be a good choice as well, and something from the Alliant powder side of things. Overall length, we're going for 2.8. I did just clean out my barrel, and I've got a bore scope now, so I know that I've cleaned it. And we're going to be doing 3-round groups for each, so lots of messing with our RCBS Charge Master and bumping up the powder charges. I don't think I'm going to bug you guys with powder throwing today. Maybe we'll show you some seating bullets real quick, nothing real crazy there. And then we're going to be out on the range shooting some groups. All right, guys, we are out here on the range, 6:30 a.m. I've already fired 3 shots and decided that I needed a more solid ground to dig my bipod into. Unfortunately, I've been to this range a few times and the ground itself is just really sandy, and I think it's causing me issues with grouping. So we're gonna try shooting off something where the bipod can't like slowly dig into the sand. I really think that's been messing with me, but we've got a pretty wild setup going on right here. So we got our UPR-10, and then out front on our proof research barrel, we've got our Huxworks 338 titanium can. The Huxworks Magnum titanium, I think is what they call it. But yeah, 338 bore. It's a little bit longer than their 7.62 can. So awesome can, great choice for a Creedmoor. As far as this crazy setup, this is from MK Machining, and I think they're working on a new version as well. So because I'm running a suppressor, it sticks my bayonet way out here. This is a Magnetospeed V3 Chronograph. Now, here's the issue with the Magnetospeed V3. It's supposed to attach to your barrel. Well, if you're shooting groups, this could affect your group size on versus off, correct? It's not just going to be a point of impact shift, it will also be like it's dampening your barrel because you're adding weight out on the end of your barrel. So the idea behind the MK mount is that it no longer contacts your barrel at all, and then you can collect your velocities while shooting groups while your barrel doesn't know that the chronograph is there. That's ideal. I mean, a lab radar kind of does the same thing, but those are very expensive. So yeah, check out MK Machining. We've got a lot of really cool stuff. Good group of guys over there. So that's what we're working with today. Just need to be careful that the mount itself doesn't come loose. The downside to this mount is that I have to run my bipod behind it. Now luckily I've got a longer MDT Arca rail and then the SkyPod, so I can actually get my feet further forward running this setup than I would if I just ran it where the magneto mount is, because I typically run my bipod legs straight down. So that gives me a better like fulcrum basically, and it puts more weight on the rear of the gun. It makes it more stable to shoot. So we're gonna see how this goes today. Hopefully by the end of this we have chronograph results and we have accurate groups downrange to show what this gun's potential is. Now I'm shooting 5 3-shot groups, and I believe what I'm going to do is shoot them round robin style, so that I am shooting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 charge weights, and then I'll probably switch it to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then like a 3, 5, 1, 4, 2, maybe something like that. But that's what we're going to do for each round. That's what we're going to do for each powder, and see how things go. One of our main goals while shooting today is to keep the rifle cool, because I don't know if this specific one likes to be shot hot. In my experience, I don't think it does. One other aspect of shooting with this MK Machining mount is that I can now run a suppressor cover. Now, unfortunately, my full Coltac, where it's got like the insulating rubber that's on it right now, plus the fabric on the outside, that's a little too thick, and I can't get my magneto close enough without actually touching it. So I am running just the insulating inside cover, and hopefully that'll keep some of the mirage away. But still very conscious about keeping the rifle cool. It's late July here in southern Utah, and temps are gonna get well over 100 today. So I jumped up at 5 a.m., came out here, and trying to get this done before the sun's on us. So I think the sun just rose, pretty cool, and we're gonna start shooting some groups. Now, because we're shooting 5 different charge weights, I'm gonna have to write down every charge weight velocity. So gonna be taking our time and seeing how things go. This thing's probably gonna be fairly bouncy when I shoot, but as long as it's consistent, that's what matters. because when you're shooting round robin, don't forget to load your mag backwards. You want to put 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in. And 27.96 to finalize the top charge of StaBALL. We're going to let the rifle cool down between every 5 shots and keep things rolling out here. Hopefully we can beat our target of, staying out of the heat. All right, hopefully I don't screw this up. We're shooting our targets backwards now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Same exact velocity, 2730. Okay, got an error on the chronograph on that one. Did not get a velocity. All right, after inspecting my Magnetospeed, it had just slightly rotated, so it just wasn't quite in the line of fire. Made sure everything was tight and everything appeared to be good and tight. So should be ready for the next string. Again, we're shooting these round robin, and this time, to not leave any bias towards up or down, because these are 3-shot groups, it would be one or the other. I'm going to start with 3, then 5, 1, 4, 2. See if I can make sure I get it all right downrange. So I'm going to single feed these. These aren't coming out of the mag. All right, it's gonna wrap it up for StaBALL. We shall see how reloader goes. All right, guys, reloader 16 climbing in charge, going from 41.5 grains up to 42.7 in 3/10 increments, and we're gonna check for pressure along the way. I also gave my rifle extra time to cool between these 2 different powders, so she was nice and cool to start with, so should be ready to rip. Just a little tiny cratering, but Uintah Precision now has a high pressure firing pin bolt, and she's looking good. Primers still have round corners. Head of the case looks good. Ejected really easy. We're right where we want to be. Top speed 2886. Well, because I've got nothing else to do while the rifle cools off, looking at velocities, and then I also went down to the target to shut off the target camera for a minute. Can't run the whole time, unfortunately, so I end up walking 100 yards a lot. But when you're shooting for groups like this and you're going through these incremental powder increases, you're looking for 2 things. You're looking for consistent velocities, and you're also looking at where the group is going. Ideally, you're going to find your node most likely within points of impacts that are similar, because as you go up and down in powders, it will slowly shift and move around just a little bit where the actual group lands. Now, on the very first shot of that shot string, the 3 middle charges all landed in a very similar spot. And then the charge 1 and charge 5 landed in different areas. So I guessed while I was at the target, I was like, I bet that the velocities are closest on shots 2, 3, 4, and then shot 1 and 5 will be outliers. And sure enough, when I come back and look at the data, the velocity for shot 1 to shot 2 is a 30 foot a second spread, and then we go to a 20 foot a second spread and a 5 second foot a spread. So those are the 3, so it goes 20 and then 5. And then when we go back to charge 5, it's another 30 foot a second spread. So when you're jumping 30 feet a second, it seems to change where the point of impact is. So very interesting. And if I were to just pick a load based off of the first couple rounds here, I would say somewhere between 42.1 and 42.4 we're going to find something good. So let's see how that goes. I will say already not as impressed with RL16, but we'll see how it finishes up anyway. Starting with charge 3, we're gonna do the same pattern, 3, 5, 1, 4, 2. Kind of had to babysit the mount this time. From the last couple trips, it's just slowly worked its way loose. This time I Loctited every screw on that mount, and I think that really helped me out here. The one time the bayo just kind of got a little crooked on me, not a big deal, but after I fixed that and cinched it down just a little extra, this thing's been rock solid through Reloader 16. Pretty happy with that. Excited to get back to the bench, reload this video, and come up with a summary on this, because I think there's a lot we can learn from these rounds. All right, guys, here we are back at the bench, and I'm still processing the data a little bit. This is actually same day, same morning that I just shot, so kind of a lot of information to bring in pretty quickly. Overall, this rifle definitely likes 130 grain ELD-Ms, which is awesome. Should be a good, fun, you know, not crazy long range round. Like I say, 1200 and in, something like that should work just fine for my needs. Overall, StaBALL versus Reloader, I'm gonna give the edge, and I think it's pretty obvious, to StaBALL, which is cool. You know, this is my first time shooting and using StaBALL, so getting good results right out of the gate, pretty happy with that. So it also is awesome to see that, you know, the powder marketed for 6.5 is working for 6.5. That's pretty good. So I have plotted out the group sizes, and on my app that I use on my phone to calculate the group size, that is called SubMOA. It's on my iPhone. You should be able to find it in the App Store. In that app, not only does it measure my groups, it also shows me where the center of the groups are. So I took my real target and took a gold Sharpie and put some dots where the center of the group is supposed to be. Now, I listened to the podcast there at Cortina, and Dan, what is his name? Dan Newberry? Yes, Dan Newberry. Optimal charge weight is kind of what this whole test is built around, really. And I'm trying to find this weird crossover of powder charge with accuracy and powder charge with good velocities, consistent velocities. So they're not always the same. You could have higher SDs and shoot really small groups, and you can have really low SDs and shoot big groups. I've done both. So we're gonna try and find the happy medium in between, right? That's our goal. We want low SDs, we want good groups. We're gonna see if we can accomplish both. So let's take a look at our groups, and we're gonna talk about group size first, and we're gonna start with 6.5 StaBALL. So charge number 1 of StaBALL was 41.8 grains, and that gave us a group size of 0.78. Then we move on to charge 2, 42.1 with a group size of 0.67. 42.4 with a group size of 0.43. 42.7 with a group size of 0.39. That would be our best group of the day. Charge weight 43 grains is going to get us 0.72 MOA yet again. In these 5 charges, if I go off of optimal charge weight, it essentially says that your point of impact should become stable across 3 different groups. When I plot this out on my target, the 3 middle groups are all almost identical right where the centers of the groups are. So our low charge and our high charge are outside of our OCW, which really kind of also correlates to the better groups we shot. Now I will say, on the top charge, I believe it was on my 3rd shot, I did not have the best shot break. I wouldn't say it was pulled, I just wasn't quite happy with where I wanted it to be, and when it went off, I kind of knew like, that wasn't the best shot ever. So the group size may not reflect what it actually might do. That doesn't really matter because I'm going to focus now on the 3 middle charges. Now, another thing I did on my notebook is I came in here on my velocities and I took the average as well as the SDs, and I split the averages between groups 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5. Now I can see the difference of how that velocity is tracking. On 6.5 StaBALL, it's interesting because it jumps and then it gets stable, and then it jumps and then it gets stable. So between groups 1 and 2, it went up 29 feet a second. Between groups 2 and 3, there was only 1 foot a second difference between those two groups in powder charge. Then I go from 3 to 4, and it jumps up 50 feet a second. But between 4 and 5, it stays stable at 4 feet a second. So as far as velocity nodes go, you're going to be in a node between 42.4 and 42.1, and then you're going to be in a node between 42.7 and 43. Our better groups and what falls inside of our OCW test would be 42.1 and 42.4, where they're almost the exact same velocity. SD of 8.3 and SD of 11.6. Now, these are only 3-shot groups, so it's not the best, representation of that. But what that really makes me look at is our target, where we've got our 3 groups in the middle, and then we had our second best group of this string being the string number 3. So, and that was our better standard deviation of 2 and 3. I really think that's where we want to be looking right there. It's right in the middle of our OCW in theory, and then it's also getting good velocities. So 42.4 grains of StaBALL shoots really well, gets consistent results, it shoots a good group, and it falls within everything else that we're kind of looking for here as far as what I've been told to look for. So very interesting. Now here is another really interesting test we're going to try. I did not get the velocity that I'm looking for with 6.5 StaBALL. I would like to push it up a little bit quicker. Now, as part of optimal charge weight, there is a 3%, I can't really call it a theory. What they say is that if you increase your powder charge by 3%, you should be in your next positive node where it's working well again. So you take 3% of your powder charge, take your powder charge, add 3% more to it, and it should put you back into another optimal charge weight. We're going to see if we can do that and push our velocity up by doing this and see if we still get consistent velocities and still get good groups. So there's definitely another test in order on 6.5 StaBALL. Velocities on 6.5 StaBALL unfortunately had an error on my chronograph, but the 2 out of the 3 velocities I got were within 1 foot a second of each other. So 26.96 would be our average. I don't have an SD, but it would be really good, I assume. 42.1 average 27.26 with an SD of 11. At charge weight 42.4, 27.25 with an SD of 8. Really solid performing powder here, really liking this stuff. Charge weight 4, 42.7 at 27.71 with yet again an SD of 8. Charge weight 43 grains, our top charge, 27.75 with an SD of 16.7, which is interesting. The SD got worse, but it's a very consistent muzzle velocity between 42.7 and 43 on average. But clearly 42.7 is holding it together a little better than 43 is, so we want to stay away from 43. Now let's switch things over to Reloader 16. Reloader 16, let's cover charges and velocities and group size. At 41.5 grains, we had an average of 2,800 feet a second, a really low SD of 3.8, and our group size, this is the worst group of the day at 1.15. Getting back to, you can have killer SDs and shoot bad groups. Now I will say, out of 10 random charges with a new bullet in this rifle, our worst group being a 1.1, I'll take it. This thing clearly likes this bullet. So 41.8 grains of Reloader 16 gave us a 0.67 MOA group. Not too bad. Average velocity 28.25 with an SD of 7.4. Group number 3, 42.1 grains, 28.45 average with an SD of 9.2, gave us a group of 0.71 MOA. Charge 42.4 grains, average 2860, SD of 16.3, and our group opened up to 0.98. Top charge 42.7 grains, average velocity 2888, SD of 7.5, and we had one that really flew away from the other two. That's too bad. I wish that that group would have held together a little better. 0.94 MOA. So yet again, on Reloader 16, as compared to StaBALL, I mapped out all the centers of the groups, and it really is a very clear picture that the point of impact is very consistent between groups 2, 3, and 4, making group 1 and 5 the outliers. Now group 1 is pretty similar to 2, 3, 4, but it's not quite as consistent as 2, 3, 4 are. So now we get to look at groups 2, 3, 4 for our velocities and kind of what we're after. Group 2, SD of 7.4, group 3, 9.2, and group 4, 16.3. So that makes me want to lean to charge weight 41.8, 42.1. And between those two, you know, we should get pretty consistent results. Now, where Reloader 16 really differed from StaBALL is that the velocity graph is much more consistent. As you increase powder charge, you're getting almost the same increase every time. Between charge weights 1 and 2, we picked up 25 feet a second. Between 2 and 3, we picked up 20 feet a second. Between 3 and 4, we picked up 15 feet a second. Between 4 and 5, we picked up 28 feet a second. So much more just linear graph of add powder, go faster, really simple scale there. All right, guys, I apologize. I know that these reloading videos get really difficult when there's just numbers flying everywhere. So hopefully you were able to follow along. Hopefully what I was saying was making sense. On this, I don't think I'm going to move forward with Reloader 16 for a few reasons. A, it just got outperformed by StaBALL, period, the end. B, it's difficult for me to find right now. So, you know, I'm limited to what I have in the cabinet, and I don't have a ton of Reloader 16. I have some to play with. But overall, just not quite the same results as we're seeing with 6.5 StaBALL. I shot better groups more consistently across all 5 than I did with Reloader. Reloader had our 2 worst groups, and our velocities are not as consistent as we increase our charge weight. So hopefully StaBALL has these like flat nodes where it's more like a staircase in velocity, where you can kind of pick a charge in the middle of that flat spot, and hopefully if you throw a 10th over or 10th below, you get consistent muzzle velocity still. That's the idea behind it. Also, on our point of impact shifts we saw in 6.5 StaBALL, it was not as dramatic as Reloader 16, again giving the win to StaBALL. Also, I can find 6.5 StaBALL currently. Usually I can run down to my Sportsman's and they've got some on the shelf, which is really important when you know, things are hard to find like they are these days. So being able to get more always really helps out. And this is my first time shooting 6.5 StaBALL, and already it's just like, wow, this stuff is really doing awesome. I didn't get an SD on my first shot, but the 2 shots I got were within 2 feet a second. And then, you know, SD of 11, SD of 8, SD of 8, and then a 16 at the end. So just avoid, you know, 43 grains, not a big deal. So where does that put us? We really need to nail down which of the charges we're going to go for, whether it's going to be charge weight number 2 or charge weight number 3. I would probably err on the side of charge weight 2 and 3. So I kind of want to go like 42.2 most likely. I think that's where I want to end up, because there's velocity splits between charge weight 1 and 2 where it jumps up pretty quick, and then between 3 and 4 it jumps up pretty quick. But between 2 and 3 it's stable. So if we went in between there, that should give us a stable, consistent velocity as well as a consistent point of impact. Even if we threw powder charge high or low, it should really shoot well for us. Now the next test would be add 3% intervals to this and see if we get consistent, good looking groups if we jump up in powder charge by 3 or 6%, depending on what the pressure will allow in our rifle. But I think that's where we're going to leave it today. I don't think we're going to get into jump tests just yet. I need to confirm more on the powder charge weight. So let's do this. Let's go in between those charge weight 2 and 3, and that's what we're gonna go for. So we're gonna load up some 42 point, maybe we could do 3 of those charges again. We could do 42.1, 42.2, and 42.3 and see where that lands us. I think we should get some good results right there. This thing is absolutely shooting these 130s, and the reason I don't want to immediately jump to a jump test on these bullets is because I'm limited by magazine length. And because these 130s are sleek, like I mentioned in the beginning, I have to load them at 2.8, which is what Hornady recommends. Good recommendation, it shoots good. However, I am limited to 2.8 on my magazine, so I would actually end up shortening my rounds to do a jump test. That's how I would have to do it and keep the rifle functioning as it was intended by Uintah Precision. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this information useful or interesting. Definitely drop a comment down below. Share this video with your reloading buddies. YouTube sucks. You got to share these videos for people to see them. It will really help me out. Definitely just dropping a comment like, hey, cool, good enough. That'll help me out as well. So thank you guys very much. Affiliate links down below. If you want to pick up your own steel targets to go shoot steel, I have an affiliate link down there for them. Arkin Optics was the scope I'm using today. 6-24 power SH4 Gen 2. Fantastic scope for the money. You're able to shoot little groups just like this with that floating dot reticle. Big fan. Thanks to MK Machining for helping me out with the mount. And then, Uintah Precision are my friends. Those guys are awesome. They make killer rifles, and this one I think proved that today, shooting lots of small groups in a row. And overall, I had a great time out on the range. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. We will see you in the next one. Catch you guys later.